3, 2, 1. We are here, another live stream. Yes, I know there's been a lot because there's so many TVs coming out in July, I guess. Today, I finally get the TCL QM8K, and I know you've all been waiting for me to compare the QM8K, TCL's best 2025 TV so far, versus the Sony Bravia 9. And we're in the USA. I know in Europe they've announced the QM9K or something similar, the C9 or something like that. But here in the US, so far, the best TV is the QM8K. Now, before we go any further, let's double check audio. I'll just wait around for you guys to say, yes, I hear you. So what we have today are the two TVs plus one reference monitor. The QM8K, top left, Sony Bravia 9, top right, and the Sony BVM 3110 HDR awesome reference monitor. Now, it has its limits, right? It can only go up to 5,000 nits in a 5-10% window, something like that. So occasionally, Jennifer Gala's content exceeds that, Jennifer. Speaking of Jennifer Gala, this is her content you're going to see today on YouTube. She's amazing, and she grades her content so bright that I'm able to test the tone mapping of these TVs. But keep in mind, as these TVs get brighter and brighter, right, that capability goes up, there's less of that active tone mapping involved, and it's more native to the TV's panel, which is great. You're going to get all that detail without the software magic of tone mapping, right? So tone mapping compresses the brightness that the TV is not capable of down to what the TV is capable of, and oftentimes you may lose some brightness and detail and whatever mess that happens with software compression. Okay, let's see. Who's here? So many of you are here. Thank you for joining me, my friends. And don't forget to click like. We're going to jump in a second as soon as I say hello to everyone. Hello, hello, everyone. All right, so let's do this real quick. Oh, I'm so excited. Here we go. 2000 nits video. So on the reference monitor below, you're going to see which TVs. Now, keep in mind, a TV could arguably be brighter than the reference monitor, but let me share the settings with you. This is important, right? You guys need to know what settings we're in. We're going to do Filmmaker mode because vivid, standard, all that craziness, it has its place. But if I'm going to match them to the reference monitor, we want to use the most accurate mode. And on the TCL, that is Filmmaker mode. Yay, 2025, Filmmaker mode is available. And just to double check I haven't done anything funky and forgot about it, I'm going to restore the defaults. So this is exactly what you're going to see out of the box when you get to Filmmaker mode, right? So this is all default out of the box. Brightness 100, contrast 100. Now, gamma is at 2.2. So what's interesting is 2.2 is not the darkest gamma this TV is capable of. It can go down to 2.4, 2.6, but as you see, technically, as you get higher in gamma, right, 2.4, 2.6, that's for a very dark room. Now, we are in a relatively dark room. That's what the Sony Bravia 9 is set for. And you're going to ask me, well, why don't you put it to 2.4, 2.6, FOMO? It turns out that 2.2 is the best for this TV. I think 2.2 gives it the most color accuracy as well as the right amount of shadow detail. Now, we will play with 2.4, 2.6, as you'll see, and it kind of messes up the picture. And you'll see how shortly. So default is detail priority. I'm going to leave it on for now. I don't think it needs it, but let's just trust TCL on this. Out of the box, dynamic tone mapping is on detail priority on the QM8K, but you may want to turn it off. We'll see if there are scenes where we turn it off. Now, the other options are balance, which is a hybrid of detail priority and brightness priority. And brightness priority normally is for things like you're in a bright room, HDR sports or HDR TV shows. You know, it can be brighter, you go to brightness priority. And balance is a bit of the two, so we'll leave it back in detail priority because apparently this is what TCL wants and thinks is the most accurate. Go to color, and the temperature is at 5. I do think this is the most accurate. Now we're going to leave dynamic color off. Adaptive color temperature is interesting. Depending on the lighting in your room, if you turn this on, it will adjust the color to offset, let's say you have really orange tungsten lights, right? It'll offset that to make it look more natural. But since we're in a neutral lighting in this room, right, very dim, and I have a nice 15% gray there, I'm going to keep that off. Okay, and white balance is default, so we're not going to touch with that. On the Sony, it is professional mode. That is the equivalent of Filmmaker mode on the other TVs, right? So here we are, professional mode. My settings are similarly set to out-of-the-box default, right? So yeah, just reset it real quick in case I forget. Okay, so this is default professional mode. Brightness is maxed here, 90, 0. Gradation preferred. That's, I guess, Sony's version of accurate tone mapping to match the source. Leave all of that off. Auto local dimming is medium. Peak luminance on high. And color, expert 1 is our most accurate color mode. Okay, now we're ready. And you're gonna wonder, wait, what's with all these neon colors? Well, you guys want BT 2020? That's where it lives. Neon green, neon purple, neon everything. That's BT 2020, my friends. But you're gonna see the differences, right? So, and by the way, this is the first time I'm seeing it with you guys. I literally just set it up this morning, and I found this. Jennifer had some, I haven't done this one yet, so this is gonna be cool. You're gonna see some pretty good images because I kind of ran through some of the other ones and I thought they looked very impressive. So, if you remember, I reviewed the 85-inch QM8K against the reference monitor, and I said, this is the most accurate TCL I've ever seen compared to my reference monitor. I've never seen TCL do it that well, including shadow detail. But there was some question whether the 65-inch is as good. So you saw me reset the settings, right? This isn't a golden sample, although it was sent to me by TCL. This is their stock inventory stuff. So let's see how they compare. And so far, when we're talking color saturation, look very similar. Both look very similar to reference monitor, and both look similar to each other in terms of brightness. Now, as you're seeing 1000 nits, that's easy. The U7K or the U7Q can handle that, but as it gets brighter and brighter, we'll see which one best matches the reference monitor. Okay, so let's say hello to everyone. FOMO, you had the 85-inch QM8K. Yes. They took it away today and gave me the 65-inch now. Have you noticed a difference in performance features between the 65-inch? As far as hardware, it looks the same, right? Same awesome remote. And it does feel, 10,000 to 1,000 nits. Oh, we'll see how well that does. The specs feel like they're both very high-end, 65 and 85. You're going to see for yourself right now whether the 65 can match the reference monitor as well as the 85 did. And we know the Sony Bravia 9 does that very well. And so we're going to stop right here at 4,000 nits. This is pretty good, guys. Now, I know that when it comes to color differences, we like to use faces because we're very sensitive to even slight color changes in the face, right? Slightly pale, oh, he's sick, he's healthy. We're not quite chameleon fans. So if there are subtle differences in the chameleon, we're not going to catch it. But we're going to get to skin tones soon enough, so you'll see for yourself. But so far, Matt, Daddy, so far so good, but you're going to discover with me, as well as everyone else, how everything looks. So as far as brightness, definitely the QM8K is right there. And we're going to do Starfield as well and all that good stuff, black levels, shadow detail. Hey, Dennis Perez, thank you for that super chat, my friend. A bright room video comparing some of these, please, FOMO. Okay, so we will use content and settings that you would use in a bright room. So if there's time at the end, I will do that for you. So right now we're using darkroom, right? Filmmaker mode, accuracy, all that. Is it me or is it really slow? This chameleon is barely moving. Oh, it's funny. Okay, it is moving. All right. I thought I had it on pause. I couldn't tell because you know how chameleons are, they're kind of like, but they're really alive. So yes, we will do that. Remind me at the end, we'll do sports content and, okay, so right here I'm seeing that the TCL QM8K is slightly brighter than the Sony. The question is that accurate? So that's why we have the reference monitor. So I'm going to pause right here. Okay. How do you know it's brighter? Well, it feels like the Sony is more saturated than the QM8K. The reality is the saturation is the same, except the QM8K is a bit brighter, so it looks desaturated. I'm going to lower the exposure so I can bring that saturation back, and you'll see the Bravia 9 look even more saturated because it's less bright. The key is which one looks closest to the BVM3110. All right. And it looks like the Bravia 9 and the BVM3110, as far as brightness levels for this scene, they're very similar, if not nearly identical. It's possible that the BVM is slightly brighter because I'm looking at the color saturation of the BVM. The Sony looks a little bit more saturated, but the QM8K is definitely a bit brighter. So it's not like it's less saturated, it's just that much brighter. And my camera, so this is how eyesight and sensors work. As a color gets brighter and brighter, perceptually, it will appear less saturated. Even if you took a meter out and you said, oh my gosh, the saturation is like 100%. The brightness, your eyes cannot see that saturation because it's so bright. Well, the sensor is having the same effect on the sensor. The QM8K appears less saturated. Nope, the colors are there. It's just a bit brighter. So right here, I can see that out of the box, if EOTF is important to you, yes, it's not as accurate out of the box. But if you're in a bright room, you don't care. So let's see if they can control the blooming though. Oh, well, since we're here, let me turn up the exposure and see what the blooming situation is. Who knows? Maybe the TCL will do a bit better than we expect. And yeah, see, so of course the BVM is amazing, right? Very little blooming, if any at all. The Bravia 9 is not as good as BVM, but it's very clean. But then the QM8K, by going a bit too bright, it's also blooming a little bit more. So maybe in a firmware update, if they take down that brightness just a little bit, it will also help with the blooming, because this is the problem. They got too excited, they got too bright, and so there's a touch of that blooming, right? But you're not going to see it. I see it because I overexposed it for you guys, but the reality is this is still good blooming control, right? As I'm taking down the exposure a touch more, you'll see how clean that Bravia 9 is. But the Bravia 9 did not get as bright, so I think the TCL, too much of a good thing, right? Get too bright and you're going to pull blooming into the scene. Now, you're not going to see this blooming. See? So I'm putting it back on the right exposure. This is what you're going to see. You're not going to notice the blooming. But it's there, minutely. Probably if you press your face close enough. All right, let's move on. See, that last scene, the brightness is very similar. Like right here, very similar. Oh, 4,000 to 1,000 nits. Let's see. Okay, so this is 4,000 nits. I'm going to stop right there. Yeah, the Sony and the reference monitor, the Bravia 9 and the reference monitor, low exposure touch. Yep. So again, QM8K looks like it's less saturated. It's not. It's just a touch brighter. But the Sony's, out of the box, color spot on, or brightness is spot on. But they look very similar in terms of color. So the color accuracy appears to be there on these butterflies. We're going to get to skin tones shortly, but I always wanted to see how it handles brightness. So I think we can safely say that as it gets brighter and brighter, let's say above 1,000 nits, you're going to notice, like right here, they're very similar, but again, just a touch too bright, so you lose a little bit of saturation at 2,000 nits. But we're being really picky here. I have to say, this looks great, but we are being a little picky. Now, this is a great example at 1,000 nits. Why is this a great example? Because most content is at 1,000 nits, and it's not super bright at 1,000 nits in terms of being brighter than the Sony Bravia 9, but it is a touch, just a touch. The white, yeah, it's just a touch brighter, but it's close. I think this is something they could fix in our firmware if they want to. They may just feel that, you know, we really want to flex our brightness. It's okay, because at Best Buy, people will buy this TV over the Sony, because people will say, oh, it's brighter, I'll get this one. Not realizing it may be inaccurately bright. So I'm going to stop here so that you guys can see the black levels. And this is, you're going to complain at this point. Well, of course, the black levels look raised because remember, the gamma was 2.2, right? So yeah, this is a great one to play with that gamma at 2.2. So I'm going to raise my exposure for you guys to see. Compare the black levels there. Okay, so obviously the Bravia 9 black levels very similar to the BVM 3110. QM8K slightly raised, right? So remember we're at a gamma 2.2 and you're like, you know what? I want accurate gamma. Take me down to what it should be, maybe a 2.4, right? So 2.2, that's 2.4, that's 2.6. So 2.6, 2.4, 2.2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it at 2.6. And you're going to say, see, all this time you held back the TCL. All right, maybe I did. I set up to fail. Well, we'll see. Let's go back to those scenes that it looked a little bit brighter. Did it get better if I adjusted that gamma? All right, let's see. I think it was, yeah, this one's a good one. Okay, this is super bright. Yeah, this is the one. Lo and behold, at gamma 2.6, nearly identical. So, you're asking me, then why would TCL have gamma at 2.2 out of the box if 2.6 gives it this near reference level of the Sony? So let's just bookmark this point right here. Those of you who are watching and are considering the QM8K, you have an opportunity to get it to reference level light levels at 2.6 because clearly 2.2 is too bright, right? And let's look at the blooming issue if it's still there with a gamma of 2.6. Still not as clean as the Sony, but possibly a little bit better, right? So what the Sony is, and so here's something, this is where we talk about software is important. We all know the QM8K has way more dimming zones than the Bravia 9, but the Bravia 9 has much more advanced software. They do more with less. Now, not like the Bravia 9 has a lot less dimming zones, but it is less and significantly so. And the QM8K had 23-bit MiniLED backlighting, right? More bits in the backlighting, the LEDs in the back, than the Sony, but the Sony really keeps it clean. So I think TCL can do this in the off season right now. They can work on this because I know they're watching this and they're saying, oh, so even at 2.6, you see that? That black level is not as black as the BVM or the Bravia 9, and that's why the BVM is there. It's to tell you how black it should be, because some people may argue, and I'm guilty of this too, oh, maybe the Bravia 9 is crushing the blacks. Maybe it should be like the QM8K. Maybe there is some gray there. The BVM 3110 tells you it's probably right in between, but closer to the Bravia 9, right? It's not pitch black, but it should be darker. So just something to think about, my friends. So we are still at a gamma of 2.6, so you guys could enjoy the reference level brightness control that is almost in your match. Okay, let's move on to, what is this? Okay. So this is, I'm going to use this as my white point test. So the best combination of white point and being sensitive to the color of the white point is to make the white point on the face, right? To make the face the, the white point pattern. So now you will really notice the difference. So I'll go back 10 seconds because I think her face was a little bit larger. there. And there are going to be a couple of these faces. Oh, there we go. Okay. It feels, you know, it feels like the Sony has less yellow than the QM8K and the BVM. And I'm looking at the YouTube monitor as well to see if you guys are seeing this. This is really hard to see. We're going to have to use real faces. This one, I can see it, but it's so subtle that you're not going to catch it. Interesting. So, yeah, it's still a little bit brighter. The QM8K is a little bit brighter than it should be, even with Gamma at 2.6. But in the meantime, let me see. You guys got questions? Sony is going for depth over color. Yes, Sony has a personality. There is no doubt there. I'm so excited. I'm ignoring all of you in chat. I am. But you know what? I will take this time to slow down, play this, and pay attention to my friends in chat, which happens to be all of you. And I will take this time, you will love this, to give a shout out to our sponsor, I know, RuiPro. Yes, I do use RuiPro HDMI cables. I connect them from my camera to my computer, and all the TVs are connected to my splitter using a RuiPro cable. Over the years, I've accumulated quite a few. So if you ask, hey, what optical cables do you use, FOMO? I use RuiPro. Now, copper cables is all over the place, right? I like them thinner because they're easier to manage. But above, for me, above 8 or 9 feet, I go optical exclusively because copper gets a bit too heavy and they will overheat your HDMI bus on your TV because it's the TV that adds or gives power, provides power to the signal, not the source. So just keep that in mind. If you're running long runs right behind the walls, wherever, make sure it's optical of some sort. And that's why most optical cables have a USB power source on your TV, because it takes the energy load off of the actual HDMI bus. All right. Okay, let's see. And we're going to use some of Jen's classic bright scenes as well. But I have to say, I'm just going to stop here. I'm very impressed by the QM8K, mostly because it comes very close to Bravia 9, if not looks identical. So we're going to go to some of the more difficult scenes that you guys, so this is just a taste, right? And then we're going to get to your questions. I know you have so many. So if I miss some of your questions, let's see what you guys have. Okay, let's see. Demo for Bravia 9. So this demo is designed specifically for the Bravia 9. And we saw how well, or not so well, the QM7K did in this next scene, right, with the swimming pool, where it was unable to render the detail in the water as well as the Sony. So let's see. Let's see how well it does with the QM8K. And I will pause and we'll take questions shortly. Is that it? No, not yet. I'm going to have to find a really good, where the lighting is like. Is it here? No, not yet. Oh yeah, this one. Okay. This is such a good one. Oh, look at that. The QM8K comes very close. Closer than the QM7K that you guys saw 2 days ago on my stream, or yeah, 2 days ago. Definitely closer than the U7Q and the QM7K, and it's right here. This is what we're talking about. The detail here in the water, right, super bright, but there's some shadow detail within that brightness that's also on the reference monitor. And the QM8K has it not as deep as the Sony, but is the Sony giving up on brightness to get there? So let's see. Let me see which ones. No. As a matter of fact, the brightness is the same. So the Sony did not give up on brightness. If anything, it's slightly brighter than the QM8K, just slightly at its brightest point. Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, they're like within half a stop of each other in brightness, so excellent. But there is a bit more depth on the Sony. I'm going to turn down the exposure a bit more because it's on the TCL, it's just the TCL is a little bit brighter. So by taking it down a little bit, yeah, you see that depth on the Sony? The TCL doesn't quite have that depth. But it has more than the QM7K or the U7. Okay. Oh, good question, Getty. So let's answer this. FOMO, the TVs look off angle to me, and what's with the light behind the B9? So this is why they look off angle. They are, so I have the reference monitor centered on the camera. If the other two TVs are flat like this, you're going to have extreme angles on the far end that will be desaturated because unfortunately it's a VA panel. By angling it inward, I get maximum accurate on angle to the camera. So even though it looks off angle, it's actually angled to the camera because it's to the side, angled slightly in, just very slightly, maybe 15 degrees. So the reference monitor is directly on angle, that's why it looks like a square. And the two TVs to the side, you have to angle it in just a little bit, right? So yeah, I mean, these are the compromises I have to make. If my camera was far enough back, it wouldn't be a problem, but then the resolution would be a problem. They have to zoom in, and then you have other aberrations and clarity issues. So my compromise is to get the camera as close as possible to get all the details for you guys, while also not losing color saturation, because on an OLED, I wouldn't have to do this, because an OLED is just, it's uniform across all angles, as we know, and that's why people get an OLED. But for a mini LED, I just want to make sure there's no excuse that these TVs could be off, because I know you're going to say, oh, you know, FOMO's setting it up for failure, right? These TVs are set straight, and we all know that if you set it straight, the far side is going to be desaturated, blah, blah, blah. Can't win. Hopefully that answers your question. And what's with the light behind the B9? It's to give you a reference of exposure, right? So as I lower or increase the exposure, like say right now, let me increase exposure a bit. You see that light, it gets brighter in the back. So when I am going in post, I'm able to match, because when I jump from shot to shot, that light gives me a reference point of my camera exposure. Because I'm moving so fast, I'm not taking notes on what exposure I'm using. But then that light gives me like a relative exposure approximately, so that I know, oh yeah, in this scene, I really hyperexposed it, like this, right? Really hyperexposed it. Or in this scene, I made it really dark. So that light in the back gives me and gives you a reference point for exposure. So you could say, oh yeah, FOMO really hyperexposed it. Look at the light in the back. It's super bright. Or FOMO really lowered the exposure because now the light in the back is really low. So this gives a reference point for everything to help you see where my camera is in terms of the settings and the sensor. And like right here in this scene, I'm going to pause. You see the QM8K, it feels like it's quite a bit brighter than the Sony, right? And you can't blame the Gamma, because I think the Gamma is still at 2.6. Yep, still at 2.6. And yet, why does it feel? But then the question is, well, that's why the reference monitor is here. Which one matches the reference monitor closest in this scene? To the QM8K, the Bravia 9? Are they the same? And in different rooms, if I had these two TVs in a different room and I ran back and forth, I'd say, oh, they look the same. That's how close they are to me. So let me see. Here we go. And we'll do a Starfield shortly. I think there's a Starfield in here. I think so. This is not really a Starfield. It's just space. Okay. Yes, in the brighter scenes, it is losing a bit of detail to the Sony Bravia 9. You're right, Mad Pistol. And correct, Mozart, I have my camera dead center to the bottom quarter, or about the bottom third of both TVs. So it is, I'd say, close to dead center. I don't want to be too off center from the BVM, but yeah. And I feel that I'm far enough away. I'm about 12 feet away from the TVs. So this is good. I think this is a good compromise, as nothing is perfect. And if you have any questions that I miss, go ahead and ask away, my friends. Correct, Jason. That's my belief as well. I think the EOTF is a bit bright. I mean, it's not super bright, but it's noticeable enough for a lot of people. Now, unless you guys are accuracy movie buffs, it's not a big deal. So I'm hyperexposing this, and I think it's good because the two TVs share similar shadow detail as the BVM 3110. And that's quite impressive given that the stars are pretty bright, right? So let's just say the TCL has come a long way. I expect this of the Bravia 9, given its price point, but for TCL to be so close for $1,000 less, it's pretty good, definitely good. Of course, there's still work to be done. But we'll go to our favorite scene right here. And the Bravia 9 is actually slightly brighter. But in this one, the QM8K is slightly brighter. So I'm going to pause right here for you guys. And I'm going to take the waveform out of the way. It's telling me that this is 4,000 nits content. So we'll take this away so we have more detail there. Okay. So the brightest part of this scene is 4,000 nits. And definitely the QM8K matches the reference monitor in this scene. And it still cannot get as bright as the reference monitor. So the reference monitor is a full stop brighter than the QM8K, and the QM8K is a full stop brighter than the Sony Bravia 9. So the HDR impact by the QM8K, definitely there. But interestingly, it's losing out on the shadow detail of the clouds, right? You guys are seeing that? Yeah, it's slightly brighter than it should be. And this is a slow moving scene, so you might want to see the shadow detail, right? So let's go through this set of stormy cloud scenes again. This is a great one we did 2 days ago. Sony does really well in these sunset scenes. Really well. I want to see which one's brighter. Sony matches the reference monitor brightness near perfectly, right? The reference monitor is maybe half a stop brighter, just barely, but the QM8K is a full stop less bright than the Sony. And the Sony has a little bit more detail in the clouds as well. So when it comes to orange sunsets, wow, that Sony is rock solid. Look at that sun on the bottom. That clarity is almost as good as the reference monitor. So TCL, you know, they got some work, but it's close. It's just not quite there, especially that sun on the bottom. You can barely see it. But QM8K comes back here. It does this scene very well. Agreed, Curmudgeon. The sun at the bottom center is almost missing on the TCL. Yep, definitely saw that too. Okay, you know what? Here's a great question. Remember, dynamic detail priority is on the TCL. So Ragnar was asking, can we get that sun back if we played with tone mapping? And let's make sure tone mapping didn't turn off for some reason. But it's on, I believe. Okay, so let's double check. The QM8K dynamic tone mapping should be detail priority. So what happens? Let's play with this. So we turn it off. No change. Brightness preferred. No real change there. I mean, the whole scene kind of changes brightness, but turning it off really doesn't do anything for that sun. So yeah, it's just, they're going to have to retune their tone mapping software to bring that sun out. And I know they're capable of it. It's just, everything is an edge case, right? And when you're you guys who are in software, you guys know that. Unless you don't know what you don't know. So you can't go fix something that you don't know is a problem. Now they know is a problem because of this video. So their engineers are going to go back and address this, hopefully. Or they may address it next year on the QM8L, whatever comes next. I hope that a firmware will come for this, because it's the little things that make the Sony Bravia 9 such a winner. Good question for Ragnar. Okay, let's move on. Is dynamic tone mapping off better for shadow details? It depends on the TV model, it depends on the TV. TCL, sometimes off is better, sometimes on is better. I haven't seen turning it off bring shadow details more, but we'll have some scenes where shadow detail is a thing, and then we can see. Actually, let's do that right now. I know exactly what scene to bring out shadow detail for you guys. It would be this one. Yeah, let's test that. How y'all doing today? I know I said Wednesday, but okay, actually let's do this. Oop. Okay, this is a good one. Oh, it's those turtles again. Okay, so detail priority, and both TVs are a pretty good match, right? Remember, we're at Gamma 2.6 and detail priority on, so I'd say great match on this one. Let's go to the next one, this one as well. I'm looking for a place to turn it off for you. And there we go. Oh, not obvious enough. Let's go find another one. Oh wait, this is a Starfield. Let's do the Starfield first real quick. Not bad. QM8K, Bravia 9 looking very similar. Yeah, very similar. I remember the QM7K really struggled with the scene, as well as the U7. Ah, here we go. This is a good one. Pause right here. Let's turn up the exposure a bit. Not quite as black as the reference monitor. Yeah, that's a good one to stop. But the Bravia 9, slightly better blooming control, right? Just slightly. Yeah, especially right here. I think you guys can see it. Just right over here. I mean, there is a little bit blooming on the Bravia 9 as well. Only OLED could do this perfectly. but still, it's pretty good. Or only OLED and a reference monitor could do this near perfectly, right? Let's try this one. I mean, it's close, but not quite there. Not quite there. So that was Starfield. I think this is the one. Okay, look for some. Oh, here we go. This is a good shadow detail one. I think the QM8K's shadow detail is phenomenal in this one right here. We're going to do some scenes. If we're going to talk shadow detail, we have to do Game of Thrones. So we'll do that next. I think before we move on to shadow detail, let's have some initial conclusions about HDR, brightness, tone mapping, and all of that. I'm going to turn down the exposure a touch so you guys can see the big differences. Okay, so before we move on to shadow detail and skin tones, we still have some ways to go. I think early conclusions. First, the QM8K matches or could exceed the brightness of the Bravia 9. However, when it does exceed the brightness of the Bravia 9, it's because it wasn't referenced. So when the reference monitor tells you, hey, it should be, let's say, 2,000 nits for the sake of argument, Bravia 9 hits the 2,000 nits, right? Right there, matches a reference. But the QM8K is like, you know what? Why don't I give you 2,400 nits or 2,300 nits, right? Yeah, just a touch brighter. It doesn't have to be. It's not because the Sony couldn't do it. It's just the QM8K is pushing a little bit brighter. Now, if you have this corrected in a firmware update, there would be a match. So I know the QM8K is capable of more, but when the signal or source doesn't call for more, you don't give more. And so as far as brightness is concerned, brightness is not a problem with the QM8K. It is, oh, here we go. We're talking about shadow detail. I'm going to look for one where it lacks shadow detail in the clouds, and then we'll turn off tone mapping to see if it helps. So the QM8K is a very capable TV, but it's a bit too aggressive in its brightness. And it's not terribly aggressive, but you guys saw the differences, right? It's easily, sometimes, half a stop to a stop brighter than it should be, and it doesn't have to be. Oh, the vibrant reds on this is so good. Okay, so at 4,000 nits, this is where the tone mapping, you're going to lose some shadow detail, and you're going to have to tone map. Because if you don't tone map on bright scenes, it's going to clip. And I will show you in a second. Now, the Bravia 9 costs a lot more. So Sony spent a lot of engineering, software, designers, colorists, you name it, right? Research to get that software right. QM8K has all the hardware. It doesn't need to do anything more. So this is what Brian and I are telling the manufacturers. No more brightness, just let's stop. Take all that money you would have spent on brighter technology and put it in your software. Because can you imagine with the amount of dimming zones and 23-bit MiniLED, I mean the hardware that's already there, but you give it some of that software love that Sony has, it'll be a brilliant TV for less, right? Because you're spending the same amount of money anyway, but don't spend it on hardware anymore. We're there. We are so there. So definitely that's something that TCL can do in the off season for next year, or even this year, if it's not too late, is just kind of tune up the finer details in the software, right? More dimming zones won't help it. the Bravia 9 has less dimming zones. And you're seeing, like this scene, they look very similar, right? It's the more difficult scenes. I'm trying to look for differences, and I can't find any in this scene. So the QM8K has come a long way for sure. Well, for that matter, even the QM7K and the QM6K, but the QM8K definitely is a slight step above the QM7K. There are some scenes where the QM7K struggled, and we're going to go into some of those scenes right after this. There's 1,000 and 10,000 nit calibration. So let me see. Let me go up a little bit to one of the brighter scenes. Okay, this is the next one coming up. You're going to lose some cloud detail as it gets a little bit brighter. But if you have any questions, ask away, my friends. I know I said that to you guys, and I missed your question, so you're going to have to keep on asking the question. Here we go. Here we go. Lost some detail there. Right? So it's super bright, and on the Sony, I'm going to turn down just a little bit more. Right, so the edge of the clouds on the Sony or on the TCL, you don't see it as you see it on the Sony. And on the reference monitor, it's just clipping because it's too bright, so that's to be expected. So can I bring some of that back if I change tone mapping? So we're at Gamma 2.6, so it's definitely not the Gamma. We're at detail priority, if I turn it off, nothing happens. Oh, okay. There we go. I'm looking at the clouds, but I see the rest of the scene. So the tone mapping on the TCL affects the mid-range brightness and the low-range brightness. It's not affecting the cloud, right? So I'm looking at the detail I've lost up here. If you guys are wondering what I'm doing. Up here, I'm losing a little bit of cloud detail, just a little bit, but changing tone mapping doesn't help up there. It's just changing the rest of the scene, making the water brighter or whatnot. So I'll leave it on detail priority. So now you know. Okay. And if you notice, I haven't touched the Sony at all. That setting is just out of the box default. It's plug and play. This is why people like Sony. You buy it, you put it in professional mode, and you forget it. Whereas with the TCL, I'm playing with the Gamma, and you'll see why I have to play with the Gamma. We're going to go to Netflix next, but let me see if there are any questions about brightness, and we'll move on. All right. Getty, QM8K or U8QG? Definitely the QM8K. The U8QG lost to the U7QG in color accuracy, whereas the QM8K is matching closer to the Bravia 9 and the reference monitor than the U8QG did. And we're going to do some, actually, you know what? Since we're talking about it, let's go to Netflix right now. Yes, extraction. Okay, now, as you can see, the QM8K is definitely oversaturated. I'm using the reference monitor, and the Sony and the reference monitor has the same amount of skin tone. Definitely the QM8K has a bit more red in that skin tone, and this is what I'm talking about. Let me turn up the exposure one bit more so you guys can see this. Okay. And remember, I was at a gamma of 2.6, right? So we take the gamma up, or reduce the gamma, or increase the brightness a bit. Okay, now I know the scene is brighter, but his face is also less saturated, right? If I decrease the exposure a touch, you see his face now looks more like the reference monitor. But now the whole scene's a bit too bright. And so this is something TCL has to also fix. The reason why they put it at 2.2 out of the box, because the color accuracy at 2.2 is better than the color accuracy at 2.4 or 2.6, right? If you go to 2.4, it's darker, but there's a bit more, it's too much color. So 2.4 is a little bit better though. 2.6 is way too saturated, right? So let's do 2.4. We'll leave it at 2.4, but 2.2 feels like it was a closer match to the reference monitor, but let's do 2.4 for now, and we'll go to the next scene. Here, this is a good one. Oop, there we go. This one's harder to see. Let me see if the next one's better. His forehead has a bit more, you know what, this is still hard to see. There we go. It's very subtle. But still a great job by TCL. You know, I would leave it at 2.4 actually, because it's not over brightened. All right, let's see what questions you guys got here. Hey, LG Brandon. Thank you for the super chat. FOMO, my favorite TV reviewer. Why, thank you. I have an 85-inch QM7K coming in tomorrow, but after watching all your TV comparisons, looks like the QM7K is having lots of issues. Do you still recommend that TV? It's not broken. It has issues, but the issues are par for course for a TV of that price. So I still recommend the TV because other than the U7, they're very close, right? Each one has their benefits in different ways, but an 85-inch for whatever price the QM7 is, it's a really good price regardless. The QM6K might save you a little bit more money, but doesn't get as bright as the QM7. But if you need more brightness, then the U7Q gets even brighter than the QM7. But then off angle, I'm noticing the U7 isn't as good off angle as the QM7K, right? So there is no perfect TV. There is this scene though that I thought was interesting. Now I'm going to show you this. And I want to see if the QM7K does this well. Well, actually, you know what? Let's do skin tones real quick. Oh, no, I take it back. Let's do this one. It's low bitrate processing of a kind of like a low resolution scene. This is not the one. I think it's this one. Oh, I know where it is. Okay. Here you go. I normally have these things ready to go, but I spent so much time watching the U7 and QM7K over the weekend after the live stream that I lost my place on a lot of these. This one. If I do this enough, Netflix will come in and say, that's it, that's enough. It's how they clean up the dark scenes. And I think this is the one. No, I'm going to have to do it another time. Yeah, ignore the BVM. It's set to HDR, so when it gets the SDR signal, it's like all over the place, right? Okay, right, we'll have to do low bitrate content another time. I lost that scene. But we will do skin tones though. So let's go to The Witcher. We'll start with this skin tone, and then we'll do the one on my Kaleidescape. Oh yeah, the QM8K is really way bright. Oh, why is it bright? Because I have it at Gamma 2.4 maybe? No. Let me double check. Oh, it's a little bit better. Yeah, I'll put it on 2.6 for now. Okay, so the gamma issue on the QM8K, it's slightly oversaturated in darker scenes. In brighter scenes, it's fine. So that's why you didn't notice this in the brighter scenes. But even then, it's really overbrightened the clouds right here. So the cloud details are all there. It's not clipping. And I'll lower the exposure to this so you can see that. You see that? The cloud details are all there, except it's so bright that it looks like it's clipping on my camera, but it isn't. It's just my camera cannot handle the dynamic range. But I am making it brighter so you can see the skin tones on this fair lady. And so this is something that I'm going to talk to Sony about. It feels to me that Sony desaturated a little bit of that D65 yellow. And, oh, sorry, there we go. It's a little bit cooler in Expert 1, and that was not the case before. And so I did reach out to Sony and ask them, did your firmware update make it cooler? Because in the scene, the QM8K matches the BVM better than the Bravia 9. Let's go to the next one. Yeah, this is a good one because you have a tan face, hers, right? Oh, wait. So this one, actually the QM8K might be a little bit oversaturated. Her face specifically. Yeah, see, this is more accurate. So at 2.2, her face more closely matches the BVM. But at 2.6, her face is a little bit too dark, or rather too saturated. So this is something that TCL needs to fix, is whatever your color is at 2.2, it needs to be preserved at 2.4 and 2.6 gamma. But now at 2.2, the scene is way too bright, right? I mean, if you're in a bright room and you don't know what reference is, it still looks fine, right? It looks great, all the details there. It's just quite a bit brighter. See that? See the clouds? All there. It's just the whole scene is brighter than it should be, that's all. So for those of you who are just sticklers for reference, I don't even know if getting it calibrated would help because it's an EOTF problem, meaning out of the box. The curve it follows is always going to be over brightened, even once you make the corrections you need to. So it's just something to think about right now. And I think we'll do Kaleidescape next. I think these are all the scenes I have. Oh, this is another good one. There we go, looking into the distance. Okay. So, the brightness on the Sony BVM and the Bravia 9 are similar. So if I get their brightness to the right exposure, the QM8K is just too bright. So I'm going to take the brightness down. At 100, it should be accurate, actually. I'll use this. So let's just take that down a bit. Holy cow. Like I'm down to 20? Is that what I have to do? Yeah, the white point on the Sony is definitely slightly off, right? There's a bit of magenta in his face that's not on the reference monitor. The QM8K actually, in this right here, with the brightness adjusted, the QM8K down to 20, the QM8K matches the reference monitor better than the Sony. So we can say that actually the QM8K won. If this was a shootout and you had judges that judging to the reference monitor, the Bravia 9 would have lost out of the box. There is no doubt that right now that Bravia 9 has a bit too much magenta, and I think it's because the D65 is off. I'm seeing this on the Bravia 8 Mark II as well. So I reached out to Sony to see if they did this intentionally or was this an accident, because before my last two firmware updates, it matched the reference monitor like spot on. No longer. So I don't know what happened. Now, it's not calibrated, right? So a lot of you who have your TV calibrated, that shouldn't be a problem. It will hold on to its calibration. But for those of you who rely on out-of-the-box Expert One, this happened. So just an FYI. All right. Let's see what you got here. Here's a good question. Nikki D. FOMO. Only FOMO I want is this channel. 75-inch Bravia 9 versus 77-inch G4. Both are 3000, fairly bright living room with a wall of windows giving ambient light and reflections. Never had OLED, so not sure if it'll work. So the G4 is bright enough. There's no issue there. I had the G4, wonderful TV. The thing is, the Bravia 9 has a rainbow reflection. So this has nothing to do with image quality even, it's how they handle reflection. If your windows are at the right angle, it hits the Bravia 9, there's going to be this rainbow that just splashes across the TV, and those slightly dark scenes, impossible to watch. But it doesn't always happen. It depends on the angle of your windows and all of that. So I don't know. I mean, I hate to say it, but you have to bring it home. Now on the 77-inch G4, that doesn't happen. It uses a different anti-glare coating. It doesn't have that rainbow reflection splash. So for your use case, actually, I'd start with a 77-inch G4. I would, because it doesn't have that rainbow reflection effect. And it's definitely bright enough. Right. Okay, I got a couple of super chats. Robert, thank you, my friend. Opinion on the G5 brightness reduction in vivid. Wait, let me move this to, I don't want to get in trouble. We're leaving on that seat too long. You never know. Okay. Opinion on the G5 brightness reduction in vivid after the last update. Hi, FOMO. Hey, I honestly, okay, so I don't record measurements to compare them before and after firmware updates. The best team to ask of that is ratings, right? Artings, ratings. They keep track of all their measurements, and then when there's a firmware update, they go back and they measure. Now, whether they measure vivid mode, I do not know. That's something else. But I know they hold on to their measurements, and as a matter of fact, I think very few reviewers and calibrators hold on to the vivid mode measurements, but I'll tell you this. Relatively speaking, even in vivid mode, after the last update, still the brightest OLED TV, bar none. Brighter than the S95F, brighter than the Bravia 8 Mark II. I mean, we're not talking huge brightness difference, but it is brighter by at least a stop. So even after the update in vivid mode, it's still brighter. So it didn't drop to the point where it's the same or less bright. So hopefully that makes you feel better. If you want to make sure you have the brightest OLED in vivid, you still have it. Now, relative to itself, is it a couple hundred nits less bright? Sorry, I can't answer that. Okay, so let me switch over to Kaleidescape real quick and we'll do some shadow detail. Okay. All right, let's see some magic here. This is a good one. And this is where the whole gamma issue really arises, is in this shadow detail problem for the QM8K, not for the Sony. Almost there. And I'll turn up the exposure so you guys can see it better. Okay. Oh wait, did I not take brightness down to 20? My God. I'm going to take brightness back up, but I guess that's the solution, is to take brightness down to 20. So, this was unintended. I was going to get all mad at the QM8K, but then when I took the brightness down to 20, suddenly it looks just like the Sony. So, okay, so here's the issue, right? HDR accuracy, you're supposed to have brightness at 100. Supposed to be, right? But here, clearly, in shadow detail, let me double check my brightness. I mean, it's up, yeah, I'm at 20, right? So here, my brightness is at 20. Look at that. Isn't that ridiculous or what? 20. Okay, so if you guys wanted it to be, no one watches at 20 in HDR because that's definitely inaccurate. So if you're up to the true brightness, out of the box, it's always 100. But look how much brighter it is, right? So at 100, it's over brightened. Now, the shadow detail is all there, so we're not going to criticize on the shadow detail just yet. I'm just still kind of complaining about the EOTF curve right here. But now we're going to go to a part where that could be more. There we go. Okay. Look at that shadow detail. To the right of her ear, right, where that hair is on the right side, the hair and the cloak and whatnot. Amazing. So the QM8K has never had this level of shadow detail before. It's just their brightness is slightly off. Now, remember, what was my gamma? We'll check. So gamma's at 2.2. Looks great, right? Look what happens at 2.6. Crushed shadow detail. So at 2.6, now your brightness is correct, right? It's similar to what it should be at 100, but the black detail is crushed. 2.2 is the correct shadow detail, but it's too bright. And this is where TCL needs to fine tune. It's kind of like you got the numbers there, but you're not getting the right combination of numbers. 2.2, no, it needs to be closer to 2.4, 2.6, but then your brightness, you got to drop it to 20 at 2.2, at 2.6, you got to go up to 100, but now it's crushed. So I see it. It's there. The hardware is there. It's just that software tuning is not, and that pains me. Pains me because it is so close, so close. The elements are there, and you know what the crazy part is? I bet you we could do just as good with the QM7K. Look at the black bars on this, right? So let's go to a bright scene where we're gonna have black bars for you guys to see, because I think the QM8K black bars is nearly as good as the Bravia 9. So, okay, I think we're done with shadow detail, almost. Let's go to the Game of Thrones. That's not Game of Thrones. And that slight red push, it's better, but as you can see, it's still there. There's just a touch of that red that shouldn't be there. Oh wait, is it because I'm at 2. Well, so this is the 2.6 problem again, right? Let's take the gamma to 2.2. And I think that's been, oh, it is at 2.2. Yeah, 2.6, you can barely even see the background at all. So yeah, so the red push is slightly there in low luminance, even at 2.2. But it's better though. It used to be a lot worse. Okay, Game of Thrones. Here we go. Look at that. Not bad at all. This is the ultimate shadow detail test. So let me turn up the exposure a bit more for you guys. I'm gonna sit here and appreciate what TCL did here. Oh, I've got a reflection going here. Let me close this. Hopefully that blocks some of that reflection. Some, still there. Okay. All right, that's better. How good does the QM8K look right here? If anything, it's a better match for the BVM than the Bravia 9, right? Look at the far left, right? There's that tree that's slightly bright. Well, the QM8K matches that brightness. This, the QM8K did very well. It's as if they took this scene and worked on it, and clearly they succeeded. I'm very impressed because this matches the BVM 3110 very well. The colors are there, everything. Now, the Bravia 9 has always been the standard for me because nothing came close. The QM8K has not just come closer, but yeah, this is excellent, excellent by the QM8K. So I know they can do it. So as you saw, there are maybe 1 or 2 scenes QM8K does better. One, skin tone accuracy in those scenes where it's pale skin with a touch of color. The QM8K has the color, Bravia 9 sucked it out, don't know why. A bit too magenta. Then here in the shadow detail, QM8K really nails it here. Good job, TCL. So, you know, you gotta call the wins when you see them, but overall, the Bravia 9 is obviously still slightly better, but I'm very proud of the QM8K because it's come so far. Remember 3 years ago, it couldn't even do the scene. It's like, well, I can't see a thing, right? You gotta get an OLED. But for TCL to, okay, it's kind of like a checklist. All right, they got the Game of Thrones scene down. Let's move on, right? So every year, they're gonna checklist one down after the other, right? So let's see what they get right next year. But I'm hoping this can be done in firmware so that when you get a QM8K, it becomes a magical TV 2 years from now. And it might still be, but as we say, don't buy a TV hoping for improvements, buy it as they stand. And so the QM8K as it stands, a lot closer than last year's QM8 because it couldn't do this last year, but not quite there yet. Okay, Roge ADC, thank you for the super chat. Hey FOMO, how often does the ABL get activated on the G4? Should I worry? I didn't see a lot. Okay, when you say ABL, I assume you mean the dimmer, the automatic dimming, right? ASBL, whatever. So when you hold onto a scene too long, right? If there's a logo, if it thinks something's a logo, it will dim the scene because it doesn't want to get burned in. But if the scene is moving, right? So like sports, if it's a football and there's no single logo on that scene, it will stay bright. I've tested it last year. It was great, not a problem. I don't think ASBL is an issue unless you have a static logo in that bright scene, then it will dim to protect itself. So keep that in mind. Otherwise, it won't. I didn't see it dim when I had it watching football, vivid, max, and went for hours, brightness. But the minute I paused it, 1 minute into the pause, boom, it'll dim. So if you don't want it to dim while paused, get a mini LED, because all OLEDs will dim if you pause it for more than a few minutes. So hopefully that will answer your question. Okay. Todd, I'm torn between the 77-inch G4 or the 98-inch QM7K. Todd, two completely different use cases. One is your focus is on immersion, right? When I say immersion, 8 feet, 7.5 feet, 9 feet from a 98-inch TV, you're focused on the immensity of the theater experience. You're not focused on the little things that, oh, you know what? What's this white point? Oh, I'm missing a little bit of color here and there. So the G4 is a great gaming TV. It will run circles around the QM7K. If you don't game, okay, well, that advantage is gone. The G4 is excellent in a dark room because of its infinite contrast, but you're giving up that immersion. So if you're sitting 9 feet away, 9 feet from a 77-inch, I think is significant. And personally, for my home theater use, I'm not gaming, let's say I'm just watching Netflix, news, streaming, sports, I would get the 98-inch QM7K because I know for me and my family, that size impacts us more positively than the infinite contrast because the M7K comes closer than any other mini LED before it. It's 3 years ago, no mini LED, I don't care who it's from, Samsung, Sony, it doesn't matter. 3 years ago, those mini LEDs, well, they didn't have mini LED 3 years ago, but those full array local dimming zone QLEDs didn't come close to the QM7K. Today, the QM7K would be state of the art 3 or 4 years ago. And it's still a good TV, but the 98-inch is what makes the difference. Like, I take a 98-inch Sony X90L. Doesn't even have dimming zones. It has dimming zones. Doesn't have mini LEDs. Because it's big, right? That makes a difference for me. But Todd, that's the question for you. And so just to validate kind of like that conclusion, so the French Broadcasting Consortium, they did research a few years back to see what consumers liked the most. Was it resolution? Was it size? Was it brightness? And in order of positive impact in terms of improvement, number one was TV size. Number two was actually motion resolution. For sports, they really appreciated going from 30 hertz to 60 hertz, right? Just doubling the frame rate on their sports content. Like, okay, I gotta have this. Those were the top two. Brightness, there was no complaint, it was too dim, and resolution was dead last. No one was going, you know what, I like 4K, but give me a bigger TV. So they went from 720p to 4K, and yeah, they noticed it, but given the three, they chose size first, and then brightness also came before resolution. So back to you, you're choosing the right in debating size or high quality image, image quality, contrast and resolution on a small TV. I go with the 98-inch because they're both 4K, but you got 98-inch, closer, contrast slightly better, but I don't think you'll notice the difference. Now, if you are that kind of person that needs like accurate filmmaker mode, accurate Dolby Vision, then maybe the G4 will be better because it does do that better out of the box. So, there's no perfect TV, but I err on the size if you could fit it, because you can't go back after that. Okay. I'll get a couple super chats. Let's do it. Getty. How close is the processing between the Bravia 8 Mark II and the LG G5? That's such a loaded question because there are so many ways to measure processing. First of all, the G5 is still struggling with color banding in some scenes. We don't know what the issue is or why. The Z95B doesn't have those struggles, and you're going to see it more in terms of the shootout. Judges will be looking for that specifically. If they don't fix it before then, they will probably lose to the Bravia 8 Mark II. So the Bravia 8 Mark II, now it has its own issues, right? It has, in some scenes it may have some color banding as well, but the G5 has it worse more often than not. And then you have Dolby Vision processing. The two do it very differently. And then G5, for me, where does image processing end and just bad software begin? So the G5 is desaturated. Like in this scene, actually I'll go back, I'll show you. This is a great scene because we're already there. So let's go back real quick. I'll show you right, almost there. Okay. Okay, so in this scene, you see on the very top, that should be blue, right? It's like a light blue, but it's definitely blue. On the BVM, on the Bravia 9, QM8K, they show that blue, very nice. On the G5, that's not blue. It's like black and white. Like the color is completely sucked out of the sky. It's more of a purplish, almost dark gray. There is no blue on the G5. Now, the shadow detail is there, so they fixed the shadow detail issue, but it's very desaturated in terms of the blue. It got sucked out. They will lose, right? So, but that's not image processing. That's just color rendering. It's just not there. So you have that to contend with, and then you have low bitrate processing. Now, that's really difficult for me to test because there's a difference between the signal having pixelated because the signals give you pixelation and you have to clean it up, and then you have the low bit rate where there's enough information, there are gaps in the information, and they try to put it together. I have found that Sony does that consistently excellent, but that was compared to the QM7K and the U8K. So I was comparing the Bravia 9. Actually, we were going to do that earlier with the blind spot. I had this perfect scene where the pixelation on the U7K was, the U7Q was not great, but the QM7K was terrible. I mean, you really saw all the macro blocking. Not the fault of the TV, that's the signal. The Sony, the trick it did was it lowered the brightness, and so the shadow detail was slightly crushed. But this is what Sony's thinking. Why do you care about shadow detail? All you're going to see is macro blocking pixelation. So we're going to just make it all uniformly dark. And that's what it did. And then we're going to add detail into other parts. And so that software made the scene look much cleaner than it should be. The U8Q was right between the QM7K, or U7. The U7QG was right between the QM7K and the Sony. It did a little bit of the Sony, but not quite as well. And the QM7K did nothing. All it did was show exactly what the signal showed, which was a lot of macro blocking. You know, just the shadow detail is mostly those giant square pixels that you see when you don't have good image quality, because it just gave you accuracy. And yes, I played with the digital noise reduction, all the noise reduction. I turned it on, turned it off, every combination did nothing. It's as if they put the toggles there for me to play with, but it really didn't do anything. So essentially, that was why people buy the Sony, because the Sony cleaned it up better than any of the other TVs. I need to do the same on the G5 and the Bravia 8 Mark II for that same scene, and I'll let you know. So we'll have that comparison at some point. But yeah, that was a really big eye-opener for me, because that's the first time I've seen 3 TVs treat bad signal from YouTube TV so differently. The image processing, you don't know what it does until you have a scene, a terrible scene, and then you see what it can do. Okay, Golf Addict, thank you for the super chat. Am I too close, 6 to 8 feet from a 98-inch TV? No. So I'll tell you where I sit in a movie theater, and then you could see if that matches you. I sit front, but not in the front section, in the middle section, but towards the front end of the middle section, right? So you have like 3 sections, the very front, which is terrible. Then you got the middle, and then you got the back. So I am in the middle, but a few seats closer to the front. And when I do that, I look at my peripheral vision, 7.5 feet away from a 98-inch TV is exactly how the movie theater feels to me, when I'm 7.5 feet away from a 98 or 100-inch TV. And perfect. That's how I watch, or how I sit in the movie theater. So if you're in a movie theater and you're a bit farther back than that, then you might want to be 9 to 10 feet away. IMAX would be more like 7 to 6.5 feet. It's like, oh, right? So use your movie theater preferences as a proxy. But I personally believe 7.5 to 8 feet for me is fine. I wouldn't sit any closer though. So, but again, where do you sit in the movie theater? If you sit a bit farther back than I do, then maybe it could be too close for you. Okay. Let's see. Making sure we have time. All right. Okay. If you have no more questions, I'm trying to see if there are any other scenes I am missing for you. Oh, sports brightness. Yes, that's it. Last one. Now, we know that the Bravia 9 is not the last word in sports brightness, so I don't expect it to be the winner here, but I know you guys want to see, relatively speaking, right, where does it stand? So let's move on to sports real quick, and then we'll close up. Ah, look at me. Okay. Oh, we'll turn this off because obviously you don't need a reference monitor for this. This is just your taste. We're going to go bright, bright, bright. Okay, let's see what we got. The Scottish Open. You know, maybe I won't get called out for the Scottish Open. Okay. Okay, let's change. Let's pause this real quick. What? Okay, what's happening? Here, let's do Sports Center. We'll join live. Oh, how great is that? Okay, so we're in Filmmaker mode. Let's hit it hard with sports. Ooh, standard. Yeah, color's a little bit better in standard. And 2.2 is great. Dynamic contrast on low, I'll keep it there. Dynamic brightness, I'll turn it off. I don't see the dynamic brightness doing much, so I'm going to turn that off. Okay, color, normal. I'll take it 2 steps to warm. Actually, you know what? That's kind of, I'll keep it at normal. That was just too much. Okay, so we have standard there. Now on the Bravia 9, I find that vivid mode is pretty pleasant, right? There's vivid. And I think the reason why the color looks saturated is most likely because live color is on. So we'll turn that down. Low. Wow, look at that. How similar they are. Okay, so TCL has definitely taken a page out of Sony. Look how good the TCL looks. Standard mode, right? Warm, couple of notches towards warm, and it looks so much like the Sony. I think they've been studying the Sony actually, because my favorite sports mode in Sony is vivid. And let me see, what was the color setting again on the Sony? Live color low, color temperature warm. There you go. So let's see some other skin tones. There we go. Auto zone skin tone. Is that a skin tone? There we go. Lady on a box. Okay. Wow. My gosh. It's like a perfect match. All right. I know TCL has been studying Sony. I have never seen this before. This is just too funny. Okay, so there you have it. You know, you get a QM8K, and really this is attempting to mimic Sony of all modes, right? Vivid mode on a Sony, it looks just like the standard mode on the TCL. I mean, that's nuts. I have never seen that before. That is just great. Okay. Now, and oh, by the way, they're super bright. So good match in brightness. One is not brighter than the other. Both are at max brightness. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the SDR brightness here. So, following up, Raj ADC, hey, yes, I meant the automatic brightness limiter on the G4. So when the TV gets dimmed, when does it get bright again? Is it a big issue? Thanks. So it gets bright again when you open a menu. So let's say you're like here, right? We're watching this. I have it on pause. If I do this on the G4, after a few minutes, it'll get dim. So if I do this, oh, boom. It's going to reset because the scene has changed completely. So every time you have a change in scene, it will reset, or if you pull up a menu, it will reset. So yeah, if you change your scene, if you change your channel, it's going to reset, it'll get bright again. But the best thing you can do also is like you pull up a menu, something like this, on a G4 of course, right? You do that, it also helps reset the brightness limiter. So something to keep in mind. Let me see if there's something else. Oh, here we go. Let's watch some news because you'll have a close-up of our wonderful anchors. And there's nothing there to see. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Oh, wait. No, it's just concert commercial. Let's not do that. Oh, the Drew Barrymore show. Okay, here we go. I can't get over how identical these two TVs look. What is up with that? Yeah, I think the QM8K is so close. Oh, so close. Spears and Munsell FOMO for skin tone. You know, I would do it if I didn't unplug my Blu-ray player. It's literally sitting over there on my desk. I'm just trying to think. What's going to happen, I'll tell you right now, is this. The Bravia 9 is going to lack color depth in the darker skin tones or in the Asian skin tones because they're sucking out too much red. You saw it in the other scenes. So it's a foregone conclusion they're going to do it on the Spears and Munsell as well. I need to talk to Sony about this. Now, even though I haven't tested it, I can tell you right now, just by seeing what happened on The Witcher and the extraction, something's up with the Sony. Now, you can't tell here, right? This looks great, right? But when you're going into high quality Spears and Munsell, yeah. So, and we saw it in the Bravia 8 Mark II. You guys saw that. Asian faces. Oh, look, it looks less sickly on the Sony because they sucked out all the pallor, right? They sucked out the jaundice. So, yeah. And it's going to take me way too long. I don't want to make you guys wait for me to set up my Spears and Munsell. I tried to get Stacy Spears to put Spears and Munsell on Kaleidescape. That way I can have it all in one box and not have to switch to a third source. Two sources already is killing me, right? But the good news is we could have Spears and Munsell at the shootout. So maybe I could run that while we do our, 8 hours of coverage. So we have time to do that. So yeah, I'll set up the Spears and Munsell at the shootout and then you can see what it looks like. But then at that point, it'll be calibrated, right? So on the Bravia 9, you can calibrate it back to reference, actually. So this is not something that's permanent. It's just out of the box. Some people might complain. But yeah, I'll, next stream, I'll set up my Spears and Munsell Blu-ray player in the back there somewhere. It's just, literally, that's the only disc I have on the Blu-ray. It's so much easier for me to jump back and forth on Kaleidescape. Okay. All right. I think, let me double check. Any more super chats? Anything I missed? Oh, there we go. Metal Mystica. Almost miss you. Maybe an easy question. Bravia 7, Bravia 9, or TCL 8K, or QM9K 65-inch. Okay, so TCL QM8. So there's no QM9K. We can throw that out for now. We don't know if it's coming. We don't know whether it's this year or next year. I have no information. I'm not going to ask you to wait for a TV that may not come. So let's forget the 9K for now. So QM8K is 65-inch or a 65-inch Bravia 9 or Bravia 7. So as you saw, the Bravia 9 rocks. So if you have the budget, I get the Bravia 9 65-inch, obviously. Now, for that money, if you can get a 98-inch QM8K, I mean, assuming 98 inches that much, but I get the larger QM8K because I think it's close enough that the larger size makes up the minor differences between these TVs. Because you guys saw the differences, right? It wasn't huge, but it's there. But then when you're telling me, well, yeah, but this TV is 20 inches larger, right? So 65-inch Bravia 9 or an 85-inch QM8K. That 85-inch, man, that extra 20 inches, I think that makes a big difference for me. So I go with that. Now, if it's the same size, obviously the Bravia 9. Why not, right? It's a great TV. But if money is a thing and you're limited to a budget, get the largest TV of that group, and I think you'll have a better time. Okay. Hey, Tony. You came just in time for us to wrap up. As Corey says, a very impressive showing from the QM8K. So that's a couple of conclusions. The QM8K did not beat the Bravia 9. Now, there was one scene where it actually did, and you guys saw that. Game of Thrones, that dark scene where she's riding in from the shadows, nailed it, right? Just like the reference monitor. But it wasn't that far off. The Bravia 9 wasn't like destroyed. It's just the QM8K was slightly more like the reference monitor. So that was one. And the second one is I felt like the skin tones out of the box on the QM8K was a better match to the reference monitor out of the box. Both TVs, if you get it calibrated, will look fine. But if you guys don't plan to get it calibrated, then it feels like the QM8K is closer to reference skin tones out of the box. However, the Bravia 9 consistently had better tone mapping of bright scenes. So here's the conundrum. This demonstrates a superior tone mapping software that you will never see in real content. This is what you're going to see in real content, Drew Barrymore, right? What you saw was the Bravia 9 flexing on Jennifer Galla's most difficult content. 2,000 plus nits, right? 2,000, 4,000 nits, 8,000 nits, whatever. And, speaking of that, but TV shows, like what you just saw, right? Game shows, Seinfeld, Netflix, The Witcher. The TVs look nearly identical, right? So that is the conundrum. Is it's hard to say, oh yeah, definitely go get the well, actually, you know what? It's this one. Here we go. Go get the Bravia 9, but then you're not going to see the differences because you're not watching this stuff. So let's run it through the infamous lizard and see how they look. And oh, wow. Look at that. Very nice. Very similar. So we're at 1,000 nits. Oh, you know what? I need to turn on the reference monitor. Because I was going to say, which has the right color? The colors are kind of different. Yeah, I had to turn it off for SDR. Because, sports, what does it matter? It's a reference. And in SDR, the reference monitor would be way too dim. It'd be literally at 100 nits. Okay, so let's see who does it right. Oh, wait, what? Oh, I don't know. It looks like the TCL. Okay, so it's very interesting. TCL has the color, but not the pop. Sony has the pop, but not the color. So, it's like you split the difference between the two. This one, I think the TCL better matches the BVM. Let me throw that up there. So, okay, so we got a couple more wins for the QM8K in HDR. So there you have it, right? So the QM8K, very impressive showing. Here and there, it does very well. Color accuracy as well as, but where it loses is color detail in the brightest scenes. The Sony Bravia 9 maps it a little bit better, but the QM8K has come closer than any other non-Sony TV than ever before. Closer than the Hisense. I mean, look at this. Oh, wow. Very impressive. Yeah, QM8K. I'm glad I did this last scene. Excellent. So see 1,000 nits. See how easy that is? Like, look very similar. 2,000 nits, things will start to get more difficult. Although, here we go, 4,000 nits. Interesting. Wait, I'm going to pause right here. Now it feels like, am I on the wrong gamma again? Well, not the wrong gamma, but it's like, see, I constantly have to be playing with this gamma. So in HDR, 2.6 gets you that better shadow detail. I was on 2.2 to get me better skin tones, or 2.4. So there you go. Now it's more closely aligned in color. But I don't know. This is something that TCL needs to fix. With the Sony, I haven't touched the settings at all for hardly anything, and that's the difference, right? Though neither TV really matches the brightness of that bright sand on the BVM 3110, so that's pretty cool. Let's see if there's anything else here. I was going to wrap up, and I realized that there was a couple of scenes that I wanted to show off. Let's turn up the exposure here. Oh, not bad. Not bad. QM8K hanging in there. Yeah, the QM8K really has improved a lot over last year's QM8 in getting close to the Bravia 9. So this is definitely a more affordable Bravia 9, but there's some, you got to play with the settings, and that's what I don't like. And so it's not quite there yet, but it's getting closer. Is the QM8K better than the Bravia 7? Off angle, yes. Oh, you know what? We forgot to do off angle, but I don't think I can do it the way it's set up. I'm going to have it. I'm going to have to change everything to do an off angle video. We can't do it in a live stream, unfortunately. It's a bit too much. Not this one, not the way I have it set up. If I have it stacked one above the other, maybe, right? So, is the QM8K better than the Bravia 7? Off angle it is, because the Bravia 7 does not have the QM8K's latest off angle technology, nor does it have the Bravia 9's off angle technology, but the QM8K will have better blooming control. It will have better black levels. But if you are a Sony fan though, so here's the thing. If you're used to Sony skin tones, I would get the Bravia 7 because it's just very consistent, right? Sony has a certain look that is very consistent. So, but if you don't care and you just want like the latest in HDR rendering, like you want impact, you want to be kind of future-proof when the brighter and brighter HDR scenes are coming, then the QM8K is better. But the Bravia 7 isn't bad, it's just off angle. People complain the most, and I had it off angle. I normally watch on angle, but off angle, yeah, it is challenging. But otherwise, it's actually pretty good. Now, its blooming control isn't as good as the Bravia 9 or the QM8K, but what are you watching? If you're watching The Witcher, Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, TV news shows, then it doesn't matter. None of these TVs have a problem. Oh, wait, what? They're both in standard mode. It's like, wait, what just happened here? What is this? I just realized I left this in vivid mode. Whoops. You could forget everything that just happened with that. No wonder. Like, wait, what is this? Should I run the caterpillar? Should I run the? There we go. So as you can see, screwed up again. Here. Now I got to do this. Where is that? I cannot let it stand that the Sony got beaten by the QM8K. I'm like, wait a minute. Sony never gets beat in this scene. How did it get beat? Of course, it was in vivid mode. All right, let's do this again. All right, now QM8K still looks like the Bravia 9, so everyone be happy. If you own a Bravia 9, you're good to go. And if you're getting a QM8K, you should be thrilled. It looks so much like the Bravia 9. Slightly brighter, like we said, it does it a little bit brighter than it needs to. Like even this scene, the brightness is a bit higher than the Bravia 9. Similar colors, just brighter. Okay. I love you guys. Yes. This is what I love about live streams. I have you guys to catch me. Okay, so now we're both in Filmmaker mode. Well, see, this is what happens when I don't read the comments enough, right? But the QM8K, slightly brighter in EOTF. So, let me see. See, this is the thing I don't like. I have to check my Gamma again in this mode. So Gamma's 2.2. Let's take it 2.6 so it's not over brightened. All right. Pretty good. Okay. Wait. What? You can't trust me even more? Come on. I'm hurt. All right, guys. Now, the QM8K will be significantly cheaper Black Friday. And this is where the value comes in, is the price. Right now, it is kind of expensive. I still think it is. I think by Black Friday, we're going to lose another couple $100 off, assuming world political turmoil and tariffs being what they are. Who knows what the prices will be. But if things are like they were in years past, we expect significant discounts by Black Friday. And that's when the QM8K really says, look, we know the Bravia 9 is better, but is it $500 better? Is it $1,000 better, right? Whatever that price difference is it that much better for that price? And at that point, at least you kind of have, you know the weaknesses, you know what you're getting. And most people will not be playing with the settings. They'll set it, they'll forget it, and they won't notice the issues at all. But at least you'll know how to fix it, if that's important to you. Or you could play the premium for the Bravia 9 and then just turn it on and set it and forget it. But with that in mind, maybe next year, TCL will bring out a QM8L, QM8M, QM8 something that will finally challenge the Bravia 9. Will we still have a Bravia 9 next year? Might as well, right? If it's not beaten this year, why should they improve it? So, you know, maybe Sony should roll out the Bravia 9 for a third year in a row. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And double check if there's any last minute comments. Oh, yes there is. You're welcome, Metal Mystica. Just a thank you for all your effort. You're welcome. I enjoy being here. Okay, until next time, my friends, stop the FOMO.